Hello, you are welcome once again to this class. Remember, if you're just joining us, please kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel and also follow my Facebook page where you will always get videos on English lessons the moment they are posted. All right. Now, if you remember, last time we discussed something here. Last time we talked about tenses. That was where we corrected the wrong ideas that students have in mind about tenses. All right, now, today, like I said before, we are going to take these tenses one after the other. We are going to be starting with the present tense. If you remember clearly, we said that the three tenses that we have in English language are the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense, and not past participle like students always say. The three tenses that we have are the present, the past, and the future tense. All right, today we are going to be focusing on the present tense. Now, when somebody mentions this present tense, what does it mean? Remember, first of all, that tense, the word tense in English language points to time, the time of an action. It is an aspect of the verb, and verb talks about action. Therefore, these tenses that we have here is an aspect of the verb that points to time. Now, we have the first one here, which is the present tense. Whenever you talk about present tense, you are pointing to actions that are happening around the time of speech. Now, take note of this. I am going to be mentioning this several times. This is where we are focusing on. Once we are talking about present tense, we are going to be considering speech so much, the time of speech. So we say that the present tense points to action. That is, an action that is said to be in the present tense form is an action that is happening or that happens around that time of speech, around the time that the speech is made. All right. Now, this present tense has types also. It has its types. We have what we know as, we have the simple present tense. If you remember, we mentioned this the last time we treated tenses. All right. Now, what do we mean by simple present tense? Simple present tense simply points to actions that are habitual. The key word that you should not forget there is this habitual. Actions that are habitual. What this means is that this action frequently occurs. This action happens from time to time. This action happens several times. It is an action that always comes. Take note, when you talk about something being habitual or when you talk about simple present tense, it does not mean that that particular action you are talking about is happening. It is not a must that the action must be happening at that time that you are saying it. It is not a must that that action is happening simultaneously with your speech. What the simple present tense form of the tenses means is that this action always comes. Now, around this time that the speech is made, this is an action that always happens. Even if it is not happening now, it will still happen. Maybe it's not been long that it happened, and it is still going to happen. If you don't see it today, you will see it tomorrow. These actions are habitual. That is what it means when you talk about something being habitual. Okay, now let us exemplify. When you have something like she comes here. If you have something like this, she comes here every day. This is what we are looking at. She comes. The shape of this verb here, comes, will tell you that this particular sentence is in the simple present tense form. What it means is that this her action of this comes you see here as an action that she performs always comes. It comes frequently. It comes repeatedly. It is habitual. That is why you have every day. She comes here every day. Is that clear? All right. Apart from that, you might sometimes see, instead of comes, you will see come. Let us say we happen to change this subject and we have they come here every day. These two sentences mean the same thing, as in the terms, in the area of tenses. Whether you're talking about comes or you're talking about come, these sentences are in the simple present tense form. The reason why this one has s but this one does not have is because this has a singular subject but this has a plural subject. I believe you are going to understand this when we treat concord. Okay, now these sentences that you have here point to the simple present tense forms of verbs. It means that these actions, the actions that you see here, they come repeatedly. They always happen. Even if it's not happening as at that time you're speaking, even if it does not happen as at that time you're saying it, it will still happen. As at that time that this person made this statement, she comes here every day. Maybe she had not even come for that day. But to say she comes every day is to say that that coming is something that always occurs. You are still going to see her. She will still come. That is about this simple present tense. Now, the second one is the present progressive tense. The present progressive tense. Now, when you talk about this present progressive tense, what does it mean? Take note that some persons, instead of referring to this as progressive, they will choose to call it continuous. It means the same thing. Present continuous tense, present progressive tense, you are still talking about the same thing. Now, what does this one mean? The present progressive tense, or the present continuous tense, as you may wish to call it, this points to an action that is happening simultaneously with the speech. That is to say, as you are speaking, that action is taking place. The action is happening at the same time as you are speaking. That is why you have this thing progressive or continuous, meaning that action continues. That action is happening as you are speaking. Now, this is where you see those verbs that have ing addition to them. All right. Now, you are going to see those words that have ing additions to them, like where you have she is coming. If you take a look at this, or you have a sentence like the baby is crying. Now, what does this mean? These sentences you see here points to the fact that an action is taking place as at that time that the speech is taking place, as at that time that the person is reporting it. The baby is crying, meaning that the moment the person is speaking, if you look at the baby, you find the baby crying. As at that exact time, the both actions, that is the speech and the action of the baby, are happening simultaneously. They are happening at the same time. The same thing with this, she is coming. That is to say, as I am speaking, she is coming. She's on her way already. These two actions are happening at the same time. Now, if you talk about present progressive tense, it is an action that is happening at the same time with the speech. It is different from what you have here. For the simple present tense, you are talking about an action that always happens. It must not be happening at that time you are speaking, but it always comes. Now, if we were to change this, we'll remove this, and this becomes comes. And then you have she comes. It becomes simple present tense. Instead of saying the baby is crying, if you want to change it to the simple present tense form, what you're going to have is the baby cries. Or the baby cries a lot. The baby cries often. The baby cries every morning. The baby cries every night. Maybe as you are saying it, the baby is not even crying, but you're trying to say that the baby always cries. Now, that is the difference between the simple present tense and the present progressive tense, or present continuous tense, as you may wish to call it. All right. The third one, we have what we call the present perfect tense. The present perfect tense. This one always confuses students. I have noticed that. And the reason it confuses students is that to some, it sounds as if it is supposed to belong to the past tense category. It is supposed to belong to tenses, to actions that have happened. Now, we refer to this as present perfect tense. Listen, to spot a present perfect tense form of a sentence, it is expected to have the auxiliary verb have or has. It should have one of these for you to confirm that this sentence is in the present perfect tense form. Now, what it means, this is an action that has been accomplished. This action has taken place as at that time of speech. We are still considering speech. As at now that I am speaking, the action has been accomplished. It has happened and stopped. Now, but we are considering now. As at this moment that I am speaking, it has happened. That is why you have something like have or has. Now, somebody asks you, why don't you want to eat? And you say, because I have eaten. What you are trying to say is that as at now that I am talking to you, I have eaten. As at this moment, I have eaten. That is what it means. That action has been accomplished as at this moment. Now, that is what you refer to as present perfect tense. Remember, I said it must go with have or has. Now, I have talked about the difference between these two. If you want to revisit it, you can check for the videos I posted. I think you are going to see it. Now, you are going to see where to use have and where to use has. All right. Now, after that, we have the fourth one called the present perfect progressive tense. You may choose to call it present perfect continuous tense. Whichever one of these that you want to use, you are still talking about the same thing. Now, what is this present perfect progressive tense? Now, when you come here, you are talking about an action that started from some time in the past but has not stopped. It is still happening into this moment that we are speaking. Remember, I said we are going to be looking at focusing on speech throughout this tense, throughout this present tense. Now, the present perfect progressive tense, this is an action that started from some time in the past, maybe moments ago, maybe days ago, maybe weeks ago, but it started sometime in the past and has continued to happen into the present time that the person is making that speech. And for you to spot where the present perfect progressive tense is used, you are going to see have been, or has been. For this, it still depends on the subject. Visit where I treated the difference between the two of them. Now, you are going to see one of these for you to know that that particular sentence is in the present perfect progressive tense form. Have been or has been. Take for instance, where you hear a sentence, you hear somebody make a sentence like, I've used much of she. Okay, let us say, the baby has been crying. Let me just add this. Since you left. Maybe somebody here is making a report, is reporting something to the baby's mother. Somebody is making a complaint here. And the person says, the baby has been crying since you left. What it means is that this action of crying started in the past. That past here is when the mother left. This action started when the mother left and continues to happen, or rather, and has continued to happen till that moment that the speaker is making that speech. What it means is that as at that moment, the mother is back and somebody is now making the report. The baby has been crying since you left, meaning that action of crying by the baby started in the past and has continued to happen into this moment that we're speaking. You have been saying the same thing, meaning you started saying this thing in the past and you have continued to say it even to this moment. They have been fighting, meaning that this fighting of theirs started sometime in the past, maybe yesterday, maybe 2 years ago. They've been fighting and it has continued into this moment that we're speaking. Now, I believe you know the difference. You can differentiate between among these four of them, these four tenses that we have. Now, whenever any of them is mentioned, you can easily know where this one belongs and the sentences that are used when talking about any one of them. All right. Now, we talked about the present, simple present tense as an action that is habitual, an action that continues to happen. We talked about the present progressive tense as an action that is ongoing as at the time of speech. We talked about the present perfect tense as an action that has been accomplished as at that time of speech. And we talked about the present perfect progressive tense as an action that started sometime in the past and has continued to happen into that time of speech. I believe you understand it. Please do not fail to subscribe to my